Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Can we have the roll call when you're ready, Mrs. Galber? Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Brown? Mrs. Gasparo?
Here.
Dr. Hall? Here. Mrs. Sanders? Mr. Teray?
Here.
And Mrs. Galbraith is here. Please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our mission statement is to ensure that every child is challenged to reach his or her full potential academically, socially, and emotionally as they grow and develop into thoughtful, productive, and contributing members of society. Do we have any public comment at this time? Okay. Any board updates? Okay. Administrative updates. Dr. Cunningham.
Good evening. I'm going to pass out a quick handout to board members and others. This is a short little report. We got it. We got plenty.
Now you don't have to share.
We have plenty.
I'm easy, baby. No problem there.
I just wanted to go over why we chose the International Baccalaureate format to be the delivery of curriculum. To put it succinctly, International Baccalaureate works, and it has worked in our district specifically for the last 10 years. Students at the IB school are given a unique education that includes students being encouraged to think independently and to drive their own learning, becoming more culturally aware, second language, as well as being able to engage in an increasingly globalized and rapidly changing world. We're looking to ensure that they all become 21st century learners. The state currently has 67 IB programs, and we have one currently here, the primary years program. What's an IB education? IB is a framework. The framework does the following 4 items. It's a student-centered program that promotes healthy relationships, ethical responsibility, and it develops effective approaches to teaching and learning. IB helps students to develop attitudes and skills that they need for both academic and personal success. It works with the global context. IB increases understanding of language and cultures and explores globally significant issues and ideas. It explores significant content. The IB program offers a curriculum that is broad, balanced, and conceptually and connected. Our district example, year after year, our students at CSK have exceeded both district and state standards, passed the state averages. CSK has a very low rate of discipline issues. All our elementary schools have low rates, but however, CSK has not had an out-of-school suspension for our last school year. We offer the MYP program. It's important to know that research confirms that students participating in MYP build confidence in managing their own learning, learning by doing, connecting the classroom to a larger world, and outperforming non-IB students in critical academic skills. What does MYP offer students? MYP aims to develop active learners and an internationally minded young people who can empathize with others and pursue lives of purpose and meaning. Research on IB focused on a few items. Students enrolled in MYP were 34% more likely to take at least one advanced placement or IB diploma program exam in high school. MYP enrollment significantly increases the likelihood of achieving at least one college-ready score on a preparatory exam, 39%. Evidence suggests that improved performance in mathematics and science for MYP students. College acceptance for MYP students increases compared to non-MYP students. The benefits for teachers. Teaching is a complex job that is never really mastered. IB offers high-quality professional development for teachers. IB instruction is aligned with professional development with our new standards. The best prepared and trained teachers get the best results from their students. Benefits to the community. Successful school systems attract people to their community, and improving our middle school can and will attract people to our district. In turn, students from our communities will be better prepared for success in high school. Is IB MYP for everyone? Yes. As a part of the MYP curriculum, schools address differentiation within written, taught, and assessed curriculum. This is demonstrated in the unit planner and the teaching environment, both of which are reviewed during the program authorization and evaluation. MYP allows schools to continue to meet state standards and national legal requirements for their students with special needs. Schools must develop an inclusion special needs policy that explains assessment, access, arrangement, classroom accommodations, and curriculum modifications that meet individual student learning needs. There were a few frequently asked questions and concerns that people had about MYP. CSK students are, one of the questions were that they felt CSK students are different from our average student in the district. This statement's incorrect. All students are eligible to apply for enrollment at CSK. There is no special requirement for our students. CSK is made up of 35% of students from Crete, 12% from Monee, 12% from Park Forest, and 40% students from University Park. Next, professional development costs of IB are significantly higher than regular professional development costs. This statement is incorrect. PD is paid for by the Title II grant, and the district will use it to pay for IB just as we would have used to pay for any other grant. CSK students will be the only students prepared for the MYP program. This statement is incorrect also. The PYP and MYP programs are standalone programs. As you can see by the number of schools that we have within the state, not every district has more than one program. So you have to be able to do it on its own. MYP is designed to prepare both the PYP and the next step learner as an introduction for the new student. We feel that IB is an opportunity for us to improve our academic engagement at the middle school level. Not saying that we're not good, because they work very hard there, but it's an opportunity to improve. And the 10 years that we have seen our students at CSK perform, they perform very well at our always above state average, and they are exceeding district standards also. That's why we made the choice to go to International Baccalaureate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Professional development, I'm sorry.
Janine, is your microphone on?
There. Better?
Yeah, couldn't hear you. Thank you. Next, curriculum updates.
Good evening. Last winter, the state made a decision based on a proposal between ACT and SAT as to which exam would now be our new college entrance exam for the state. And SAT was awarded the contract, which is a shift. We've had the ACT now for upwards of 15, 16 years. But this July, they also made another decision regarding the SAT, and they announced that the SAT, not only would it be a college readiness or college entrance exam, but it would now be the high school assessment for which we would be used for state and federal accountability, replacing the PARCC assessment. If you recall, we've been giving PARCC at the high school now for the last 2 years. So we've given it for 2 years, and starting this year now, PARCC will no longer be given at the high school level. One of the major factors in that decision at the state level was the concern about how the PARCC assessment was being given at high school. It wasn't given to a single grade level or for a single subject. PARCC is course-based, and schools had the option to choose what courses or what grade levels they wanted to give it. So while we were giving it for 9th graders at Crete Monee High School,
down the road, another high school could have been giving it at 11th grade. And so the U.S. Department of Education didn't look upon that favorably. So we will be giving the SAT this year. We will be giving it at no cost to our students, and we will be giving it during the school day. And the SAT, like our previous series of assessments, we had Explore, which we started in 7th grade as a practice, Explore, then Plan, which we started in spring of 9th grade, and then we moved to ACT. The SAT has a similar series of vertically aligned tests. So there is the SAT 8-9, which is given to 8th and 9th graders, the PSAT 10, which is given to 10th graders. There's the PSAT NMSQT. I always have trouble saying all those letters. That's the National Merit Qualifying Test. So students who take that in their junior year are eligible then for scholarships based upon how they do. And then the culminating test is the official SAT, which is given in the spring of the junior year. So we will be setting up a series of tests for our 8th through 11th graders, similar to what we did for the Explore Plan and ACT. And in your board packet, in my report, I've outlined the test dates and the tests that those grade levels will be given for this year. We set it up so that we will do a fall test and a spring test. We want to get a baseline in the fall since it is a new assessment. And then in the spring, we want to be able to test again to see if we see the growth that we're getting from fall to spring. The College Board, unlike the company that provides ACT, the College Board has made a major shift in their philosophy regarding this college entrance exam. And they are now of the opinion, which I do agree with, that the test should not be a secret. We need to prepare our students to take the test. We need to give them every opportunity to do the best that they can. And for those of us sitting around the table and in the audience, I think we can think back to when we took the ACT, probably took it on a Saturday, and we had no help. We just went in and we took the test. What College Board is proposing and what they're going to do is provide a lot of resources for students, for teachers, and for parents to help students do the best they can on the test. So part of what they're doing is they're providing online practice tests. Those practice tests can be scored online by the individual student. Those tests can also be linked to Khan Academy, which is an online site that provides basically personalized learning. And what will happen is once those tests are scored, those test scores will then be linked with Khan Academy to create like a personal learning path for that student in order to be prepared for the next exam or for the ACT or the SAT. The other thing that they're providing is a free phone app. So you can put a phone app on your phone, and there are daily practice questions on the phone that students can do. Teachers can utilize those as well. And then the other piece to it is they are linked with several organizations that will match students to scholarships based upon how they do on the SAT. So they're providing a lot of free resources that are going to help our students do a great job on this college entrance exam. What we've done as a school district, we began back in April with a school implementation plan because part of what we needed to do was to get our teachers and administrators, everybody up to speed on the new tests. So we brought in a trainer last April who went over some of the details regarding the test structure. What we're going to do on April 2nd is we're bringing in a trainer from the College Board, and they are going to be working with the middle school for one session, because last time when we did it in April, we worked with our high school teachers. So the middle school will have their own introductory session, and then they're going to have breakout sessions with our different departments at the high school, which was what they requested to have happen after our last April training. Was they wanted some more work by their content area, so we'll be doing that. Our guidance counselors will be attending a workshop on September 12th to learn more about the registration process and more about the test. And then, as I said before, we're going to do that fall and spring testing with our students. And we will actually, when we sign our students up and when they sit down to take those fall tests, we will actually create those online accounts for them to link practice tests with Khan Academy. So we will get them all set up to utilize all of those free resources. The other piece to this is a communication plan. And I know Mrs. Nash has been working, we've been working together on how we're going to get the word out, not only to students, but to families. So she has a very detailed communication plan that's included in your packet. And just generally speaking, we're going to utilize all of our available resources, our website, send a parent letter home. We are going to utilize our monitors that are throughout the building to make sure that the word is out. And we will be trying to get parents to log in and look at those resources and make sure that their students are taking advantage of those.
Thank you. I'll say that I know that there are a lot of changes that come forth in education, and particularly in Illinois. We have a lot of changes, even from the federal level with the ESSA. And, our state has been using ACT, I believe, for 10 years. And most of us here are used to the ACT test. So when I saw your information, I was at least, glad that all of these steps have been put in place to make sure that our kids are prepared, as well as the communication plan. Natalie, I thought that was, very thorough. And I like the template that you're using that outlines exactly what we plan on doing and making it transparent for us to understand exactly what we're doing. So I think it's wonderful when we take the steps to ensure that, no matter what the changes that are taking place, that we are doing the best that we can on the district stance to make sure that our students are successful and our parents understand. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
All right. I'm trying to understand all this and digest it. So if the student, if we're using this to assess the student, say, at the 8th grade level, and we find that Susie or Joey is woefully behind, and they get, I don't know how SAT used to be 1,600 points or something, right?
Yes.
Is the max, and
It
what
still
is
is.
what's the minimum? I don't know,
It's a sliding scale. It builds from the PSAT 8 all the way up to the SAT, but I think the minimum per test on the PSAT 8-9, I believe it's 720 is the highest. So it's
Okay.
a short,
All right,
smaller range. It moves up.
So my question is, what plan is in place for the little darling that doesn't do well in 8th grade? What are we doing to provide additional instruction, or are we gonna, let me rephrase it. I don't want to get into a position where we identify, but we don't do anything to correct it. I want to, if we got a population of students that are way behind or struggling, what plan are we putting in place to bring them up to speed so that when they take it again, and now they're going to improve, what additional instruction are they going to be given? That's question number one. So how's that going to work?
Well, I think the thing about the new test is that it's much better aligned to our current standards. ACT did not have that alignment, and if you remember looking at test scores a few years back when we had the PSAE at the high school level, which was the ACT, we had, our students would take ISAT and they do fairly well, and then by the time they got to 11th grade and they took the PSAE, it would fall off. There was this dramatic difference. The thing that's nice about this is that this is a new SAT, so it's redesigned, and it was redesigned with the Common Core standards in mind. So we're not going to have that difference between what's happening with PARCC and what's happening with SAT. With that being said, if it's aligned to standards, it's much more in line with our curriculum. So the test itself is just one measure of the curriculum. So we're not going to be looking at this test and then looking at what students are doing in the regular curriculum. What they're being asked to do on the test is related to curriculum. So we'll have a much better idea not only of how they're going to do on the test, but the reports themselves will be linked back to what's going on in the classroom. So it's a much more fluid and ongoing type of process. The eighth graders, they will take this test in the middle of eighth grade year, and our plan is to start in seventh grade like we have done with the Explore. We just have to wait because it's a new test. There are no retired practice tests that have been released yet. But once that happens, we'll start in seventh grade with a practice that is there's no accountability or anything with it. It's just a matter of seeing where our students truly are when they start this process, and then work through seventh and eighth grade, looking at those reports that get down to things that are related to the curriculum so that our teachers can address it, not only during an intervention period, but also through their classroom instruction. So it's going to give us, keep things much tightly knit with curriculum, I think, than our previous test.
Okay, well, I'm still a little fuzzy on what extra help they're going to get, if.
Well, we're doing it now. I mean, we have intervention periods at the middle school, and we're planning for intervention at the high school. So they will be providing intervention based on the reports, individual student reports, and it will help us group students according to things that are based in our curriculum as opposed to things that are just test-based, because the test is connected to the curriculum.
Okay, I just don't want them to be taught the test, that's not getting us anywhere. And when you mentioned the middle school, with the addition of the music and the art and all that, how are we retaining enough time for remedial work, intervention work? Does the teacher have that built into their schedule where they have the period to do this remedial work with these kids that are identified as behind? Or
Yes, the middle school schedule has not really significantly changed for this upcoming year. So the way they've been handling intervention in the past will be how they will continue to do it going into the school year.
Okay, and I just want to make sure they got enough time to do these things. And what do we do with the kids on the IEP? Are the tests modified for kids on individual education plans that directly affect take a test or their learning, versus behavior? How are the tests modified?
I'm really glad you asked that question. SAT, the awarding of accommodations or the approval of accommodations for IEP students is different than it was with the ACT. It's much more, I guess stringent would be the word. ACT, we would put in the test accommodations based on the IEP, and there was no issue with them. SAT has an approval process. So currently, Mrs. Bellotti and her staff are working on inputting all of the student information into the accommodations portal for SAT, and then SAT goes student by student and reads that information and then determines what accommodations are appropriate, and then they notify us. So it's an entirely different process. It's a much more cumbersome process, and it's certainly a process that I think schools in Illinois are a little surprised by, because it's much more difficult to do. So we're in the process of doing that. But there is an approval process for the accommodations for IEP students, and then based on their needs, College Board will notify us of which accommodations they will allow us to use.
And by accommodation, do you mean they're using a computer or something in the test, or do you mean actually modifying the test for a child that can only comprehend at fourth grade level? How do you do that?
Well, there's different. This test is not computer based. It's a paper pencil test. The accommodations can range anywhere from extra time. It could be large print. It could be having someone read the test to the student, depending on what their academic needs are.
Okay. Now, are they going to be separated when we get the overall score on how we did? Will the children with the learning disabilities be categorized? Will all the kids be bunched together, or will there be separation to show that these children are have a legitimate learning disability and are unable to compete in this testing, are they going to be separated, or is everything going to be bunched together?
Well, when the reports come in, they come in a variety of ways. So we generally, they are broken down by what we, under No Child Left Behind, called subgroups, which were whether students were classified as having an IEP or not. But internally in our system, we can identify which students have IEPs, and we can disaggregate the data that way as well.
Well, I just, I'm concerned about it going out to the public that, this is our grade and everybody's bunched together, and there's no explanation to the public that we're only performing at 600 or pick some number out of the sky, and they don't understand that all the special needs kids and the kids with severe learning disabilities are all bunched in here. So it's not really a reflection, it's a different than I don't know how to put it, I don't want to exclude any kid, but there should be some way to understand that, to the grace of God, these kids just don't have the ability to do this. And, you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes. They do.
Okay. Trying to say this politically correct.
We
All
can,
right.
we can
And-
disaggregate the data into different groups of
Okay,
students.
that's
to
fine.
report.
And the last question I had is, I see this starting at 8th grade. What are we doing in the kindergarten through 7th?
Well, Park is still in place for grades 3 through 8. So this is what we do, and what we've done is we've started this college entrance exam with our 8th graders. What we actually started with 7th with a practice, because we have to make the transition from Park to the SAT suite of assessments. So our middle school kind of takes the brunt of that transition. So we get them on the end of the Park testing, but we also start them on the next series of tests so that we can get them prepared for 11th grade when they take the official test.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Real quickly, I'd just like to thank Laura and the curriculum department, because they have a very nice system of transition. Not every district has that system of transition where you go from elementary to college prep. And that job, it does a great job. And they've made sure that as we've made the shift from ACT to SAT, that we've continued it. It's great work.
I commend Laura also. I just see, it's a constant change.
Yes, it is.
There's no
Well, no argument for
stability
me.
here, it's like, it's like the weather,
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible, But then again, we're in Illinois, like one of my colleagues said. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next business updates. Dr. Williams.
Good evening. Included in the FYI that you received yesterday was a written update from DLA Architect on the status of the project. You may recall from that document that certain areas of the existing building were to be turned over to the district on August 12th. None of those areas were turned over, and they pushed those dates back roughly a week, as stated in the letter. I spoke with Brian from DLA today, and he believes that the dates stated in the letter are attainable. Overtime continues to improve progress on the project. For the last 2 weekends, that overtime occurred at the expense of Chicago Heights Construction. And we expect them to start turning over sections of the existing building late this week. And the turnover date for the main addition is still set for the end of August, so that we will be prepared for the first day of school.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
The little theater and the music room, the little theater and the amphitheater are exclusions from this, right?
I'm sorry.
The amphitheater, the little theater, and the music room, are they excluded from being ready on the first day of school?
There are some aspects that will not be complete. For example, The railing in the amphitheater will not be complete for the first day of school, but there will be temporary protection put in place for that.
Okay, and the lighting and I never heard back on the stage either. We discussed the stage. Did you get any figures on the stage, repairing or replacing?
I hadn't finished all of the work on that from the board's input. Once I have that, I will make sure that that's sent out to the board.
I'm sorry, I'm not catching it.
I haven't finished all of the work that was requested to get the information from the board. Once I have, the information will be sent out to the board. That's from me.
Okay, so the architects, they're going to give us some idea?
We'll get some idea.
Okay, because I don't want to fall too far behind on that. So I think the ceiling is waiting on that. And the lighting, and that board, that panel, is that panel still, let me rephrase. The lighting panel that they need for controlling the new lighting, have they now determined that they can go ahead with the ceiling and the flooring and the seating and not have to worry about that panel, any rewiring in the ceiling?
They're working on that, and they are planning overtime to address that issue. And that will not be at the expense of the district because it was clearly stated in the plans.
Right, because, they said they may have to rewire and they'd have to have scaffolding in there to do that. So.
Yes. They were
Correct.
working, when I was there today, they were working on the floors.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve I'm sorry, to remove the wrestling, is it? Okay, sorry. I have a motion to remove item number B2, overnight field trip approval wrestling tournaments from the agenda. I believe there's some more.
8B2.
Did I say it right? I'm sorry. Item number 8B2, removed from the agenda. And I believe there's some additional items that need to be added to that, and it'll be brought back next board meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So may I have a motion to remove item number 8B2 from the consent agenda?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Gasparo,
Second.
second by Mr. Teray, I think. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, thank you. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as the following. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Gasparo. Second by Mrs. Galbraith. Dr. Cunningham, please read.
Consent agenda approval. Superintendent, regular meeting minutes of July 19th, 2016. Regular meeting closed session minutes of July 19th, 2016. Special meeting board workshop meeting minutes of July 26th, 2016. Special meeting board workshop closed session minutes of July 26th, 2016. Special meeting minutes for August 9th, 2016. Committee of the minutes for August 9th, 2016. Committee of the whole closed session meeting minutes of August 9th, 2016. Approved board policy 7:165, student school uniform fast track. Approved scope membership renewal 2016-2017. B, curriculum. Overnight field trip approval, CMHS band tour. C, approve accounts payable, agenda of bills. Approve payroll for August 2016. Approve treasurer's report. Approve fireworks display approval, homecoming 2016.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question on the accounts thing. There was, On the credit card, Mr. Cunningham's credit card on 7/4/16, the NSBA thing that I was reading, $695 to go to the conference plus $189,884. Embassy Suites, there's 4 separate billings, 1319, 59, 273, 66, 50, 74, minus 670.79. I'm trying to figure out where the food and travel expense is in this. Can you explain where that's at?
I'm sorry, you referenced several different transactions.
Okay. Let me give you the paper. This was dated 7/4/16.
Oh, okay, I missed you the
Okay.
date. You were reading all of this.
I'm reading all this and I'm trying to figure out where the travel expense is and where the food expense is on this. How'd they get, I don't know if this is Nate or Dr. Hall or whoever traveled here, how'd they get there and you know, was it by the cheapest route possible?
So.
Did they fly? What did they do? Where's the travel expense on there? This is all hotels and the conference. Where's the actual travel and the food?
Are you asking for a copy of the actual expense report associated with it? Because that would have the detail that you're referencing.
Yes.
Okay, I don't have that here, but if it is the pleasure of the board, I can get you that.
To the board, as requested.
What's
Thank you.
the clarity, or what's the question? I'm not understanding.
I'm trying to see if all the expenses are here. For this travel, there doesn't seem to be any travel or food money. And, you know, how did this person get there? And if it was cheapest way possible, you know, I talked about driving and train and different stuff. Cheapest way to airfare was
For most of those trips, I will have to be taking care of that. Or the district as we travel back and forth.
well, you know, if we got to pay for it, I'm just kind of wondering why we don't take a vote on it and approve it, you know, regardless of who it is, if it's me or anybody else, you know. It's, you know, if they're not going to pay for it, I don't understand why we don't take a vote. But I guess that's a question for another day.
So this is what, NSBA? Okay. Our board policy, does that not fall under board policy 2:125?
What is that policy? I don't know it.
I was just looking it up. It says board member expenses. It says basically that a board may reimburse a member for registration fees, on, you know, so forth. And it says expense reimbursement is not guaranteed and board members should seek pre-approval of expenses except in situations when the expense is say that word for me, diminutive. Members must submit itemized receipts. So I don't remember a pre-approval for that. It's just something that just happens every year. I don't know.
No, this is, okay, so it doesn't specify that it's board pre-approval, because if that's the case, we would be taking a vote on every single conference that any one of us
Then
go
that's
into.
great. Then we'll need
So
to
I
change the
did-
policy because it says board members should seek pre-approval of expenses. So
Okay, but it doesn't specify approval from whom. So I did speak with the superintendent in regards to the trip. It doesn't say, we've never done the board pre-approves any conference
we can
or
talk about that
anything
in
like
policy
that.
then.
And so, yeah, I did follow the policy as I know it to be and how it's been.
So let me understand. If I want to go to a conference or a seminar or whatever, I go to Mr. Cunningham and he approves the money. So I would go to my employee to get approval for me to go someplace. That kind of doesn't make sense to me. It's kind of
I'm-
like backwards.
Just so we're being clear, I'm an employee of the board.
Understood, but
Okay.
you're also employee of, I'm one of the board,
Yes. Yes, sir.
okay? So it doesn't make any sense to me to go to you for approval for me to go someplace.
Let's just make sure we're clear. They didn't come to me for approval, came to me for, to find out what the board policy said. And I told her what the board policy said.
And it's the same as we're board members, but we're subject to whatever the policy is and whatever our employees that are put in place in the business office. I've had conversations with Dr. Williams. I've had conversations with people in that office as well. And, we don't sit in the day-to-day seats. So I followed the protocol that has been in place before. Or has always been in place since I've been on the board.
Okay, I
And
just
so
find
if it's an issue of the entire board, or if it's specific to me and me going, I'm not sure, but we can definitely discuss as a board how we want to do, everything moving forward.
Well, to me, if you volunteer for something, then it's, you volunteered. If you're going to travel, you travel voluntarily, if the organization's not going to pay for it, If it's something that we as a board approve and say we'd be delighted to have you as a director of whatever, or me as a director of something, or anybody, Chris or anybody, then I think it's a different story. And, it's a little hazy, and I would appreciate if we did have a discussion in the future on how we're going to proceed with that.
And we all are volunteers. We're volunteers in these seats as well. So it's the same thing.
It's just not the same. It's an apple and an orange, We volunteered to be on this board, and the things we do as a board, we do as a board. And, I just, if we're going to branch out and volunteer to do individual things, I think how it's going to be paid for needs to be looked at, that's all. And if it's the pleasure of the board that everybody, anybody or join whatever, and that's fine, as long as we have it in the budget and we can do it. That's just my comments, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Ms. Galbraith, please call the roll.
Mr. Trey?
Aye.
Mrs. Sanders? Mrs. Gasparo?
No.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
And Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
I'm sorry, did you call Mr. Toure?
He was first.
Oh, okay. Sorry, thank you. Next, action reports, human resources. May I have a motion to approve the employment of certified staff, reassignment of certified staff, leave of absence for certified staff, return from leave of absence for certified staff, the intent to retire from certified staff, the resignation of certified staff, employment of educational support staff, reassignment of educational support staff, leave of absence for educational support staff, return from leave of absence of educational support staff, the intent to retire of educational support staff, and the dismissal of educational support staff.
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Galbraith,
Second.
second by Mr. Anderson. You ready, Mr. Neal?
Absolutely. Our certified staff employment is Amy Bob, Maria Bovina, and Wanda Perkins. Certified staff residents include Chloe Becker, Sarah Berry, and Linda Nelson. Certified staff leave of absence is Amy Bertoletti and Brianna Sylvester. Certified staff return from leave of absence, Jontel Perkins. Certified staff resignations, Dawn Anthony, John Coleman, Brenda Grage, Kimberly Krasik, Kate Sullivan, and Moise Tarpai. Educational support staff employment, Catherine Benefield, Keith McLean, Paula Moon, and Lisa Morris Hall. Educational support staff reassignment, Manique Knack. And educational support staff resignation, Nedra Berkeley, Sabrina Moore, and Tara Wagner.
Thank you. Secretary, please call the roll. Galbraith?
Mr. Trey?
Aye.
Mrs. Sanders? Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
And Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Business. Dr. Williams?
Good evening again. Included in your packet is the 2016-17 tentative budget, along with the resolution to adopt said tentative budget and a draft public notice. This budget was discussed during the August Committee of the Whole meeting. Revenues total 69 million, expenditures total 81 million, and the variance is in large part due to the outstanding payments for the middle school. If you back those payments out, we're currently planning for a deficit of under $2 million. It's worth noting, in addition, it's worth noting that the budget will be updated and has been updated actually since that meeting as we have received additional information about revenue. We will continue to do that probably up until the last day before the Committee of the Whole meeting where that final budget is brought forth. As required by law, public notice will be issued in the Daily Southtown, and the budget will be on display in district office for more than 30 days, for 30 days or more rather. And tonight we are simply recommending adopting the tentative budget via resolution and scheduling the public hearing for September 20th, 2016.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adopt the set forth resolution approving tentative fiscal year 17 budget and setting the public hearing date?
September 20th.
Moved.
September.
The public hearing date for September 20th, is that what we said?
Yes.
Yes.
September 20th. Thank you. Moved by Mrs. Gasparo.
Mr. Trey said move too, so.
Whatever.
Need a second.
Okay.
We can be second.
Second by Mr. Teray. Ms. Galbraith, please call the roll when you're ready.
Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Brown? Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mrs. Sanders? Mr. Trey?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Aye, thank you.
And Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I
Motion
know this is all
carries.
new to us.
May I have a motion to approve the insurance committee recommendation to change HMO and PPO insurance plan designs?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Gasparo,
Second.
second by Mrs. Galbraith. Dr. Williams?
Yes, the insurance committee met several times in the past few months. We spent a lot of time talking with the new insurance broker, Vista National, to obtain an understanding of the current programs and how potential plan changes could impact the rates for the premium. Pursuant to the most recent CMEA agreement, the committee had equal representation from both unions as well as the board and the administration. The committee took a vote on each item described in the board report that is included in your packet. They voted on each item separately, and the changes outlined in that report are recommended for your approval tonight.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. Is this the best deal we can get?
There are other changes that could be made that would lower the rate, but the committee felt that they would have a negative impact on the staff as a whole. So these are, I mean, we could have made more changes, but this is what the committee selected, and that's the entire committee.
With the input from the people who are actually going to buy the insurance, right?
It is my understanding that the union representatives did take into consideration their membership, as well as the members of the Board of Education that sat on the committee. Thank you to Ms. Gasparo and Ms. Galbraith, and the members of the administration that sat on the committee, Ms. Perkins, Dr. Vaughn, and Mr. Neal, and myself sat on the committee to represent the administration.
Okay, I just wanted to see that this was the general consensus of the entire group, that this is the best plan that they want to go forward with. That's
This is what we
correct, right?
voted on, sir.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And can I reiterate, we do have 2 board members on that committee that gave input on behalf of the school board, correct? Thank you. Okay, Mrs. Galbraith?
Mr. Toure?
I'm going to vote no.
Mrs. Sanders? Mrs. Gasparo?
Aye.
Mr. Brown? Mr. Anderson?
Aye.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
And Mrs. Galbraith is an aye.
Thank you. Okay, any old business?
I have one thing. I would just like to put a thank you out to everybody in the district that worked registration. I was over there a lot. I was very impressed with the professionalism, the courtesy to anybody who came through that door. You have inherited some wonderful employees who gave of their time unselfishly. I mean, I do know that there was pay involved, but still, they were there and they were wonderful to the community, and it was a good experience. I think we got a lot of good feedback. I talked to a lot of parents. They were thrilled with how well things were going, and every year we're making changes. So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to, sit with you. I think that we've got it honed down a lot. I'm sure there's more improvements we can make. They do like the in-person. Some of them, you're never going to change them. I'm like, why didn't you do this when you could, or the Dropbox or whatever? Nope, I'm coming in. So, you're always have those stalwarts. I'm a newspaper person. I still read the newspaper this way, not this way. So, but they were very, very appreciative of how they were treated, the knowledge that was given to them. So my hat's off to everybody who worked registration. And that includes our IT people who were there and fixed everything as it happened. I mean, just everybody that worked. I just would like to say thank you to them all.
May I say one thing to piggyback on that? There was one person who really wasn't hired with the expectation of taking the lead on registration, but Yona Lejeune did that very well this year after Dr. Spence left, and while Dr. Clark was being onboarded, Yona took over and did a phenomenal job. So I just wanted to publicly thank her.
Thank you.
I have a question. I guess, I don't know if it's old business. Did we do the Mad Bomber thing? The Mad Bomber, the fireworks.
It was on a consent
Did
agenda.
we? I didn't hear any talk about the fireworks, so I don't know. Well, that's what he calls himself, right? I mean, I'm looking at the thing here. Okay, my apologies. I'm sorry. I thought normally we talk about it, and Mr. Brown has several questions on insurance, but everything's here. Thank you. I'm sorry.
So yeah, just for the record, the name of the vendor for the fireworks for what? Homecoming?
Is Mad Bomber.
Okay.
Yes.
Don't be alarmed.
Please don't panic.
Any new business?
I think we should probably, even though we're kind of an empty house tonight, we should probably make an introduction.
Oh, that's right. We do have a new.
Although I think everybody
district
probably knows, but
administrator. We have Dr. Rochelle Clark, who has taken the place of Dr. Monica Spence, and she is the Assistant Superintendent of District Affairs. And I think her head's not spinning too fast, at least she's not admitting it. But we want to welcome you on behalf of the school board and the district. Thank you for saying yes to Crete, Monee, and she comes by way of Decatur, Illinois, correct?
That's
You
correct.
have anything you want to say?
I just thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to working with the community and getting to know my babies. And if there's anything I can ever do, just always let me know. Just a phone call or email away.
Thank you and welcome. I have a quick question about the construction. So you gave a kind of a quick update, but I have a question about something that was in the FYI regarding, are we behind on the railing? What was the issue with that? I didn't really understand what was going on with that. There was some railing that was already late, and
Yes.
now it's pushed back.
Correct. There was a railing that was delayed because they needed the specific measurements of the amphitheater before they could order it. And of course, the amphitheater was delayed because of the tank. So I believe the original date was September 16th or somewhere around there. Then I was informed by the architect that there was some miscommunication, and production of the railings was halted for a period of a few days. And as a result of that, that pushed that date back into early October. I don't have the FYI, I apologize, but the date was pushed back to early October as a result of the miscommunication. And DLA is working with Chicago Heights as well as the subcontractor to try to improve that timeline.
Okay, so what was the miscommunication? I'm not understanding.
It's my understanding from DLA that there was a miscommunication, and the subcontractor that was working in that area was told that the height of the railings would need to be changed, and that subcontractor took it upon himself to inform the manufacturer without seeking input or guidance from the architect or the district. And that was the miscommunication.
Because I remember we had the conversation in the committee of the whole meeting where Mr. Teray and Mrs. Galbraith went. And so I'm confused by what are they actually saying occurred? So I don't.
It's my
Is this the
understanding.
same thing? Is this the same thing that you guys were?
That did not occur. I was there. We measured, we did not have a tape measure, so we used me to guess where these increments were. Mike had been concerned about it, contacted me. I took a ride over about the little theater and things like that. And I said, this might be something we want to bring to the board. That was the end of the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. And Dan said, if you'd like to find out what it would cost to add 6 inches, a foot, whatever you're thinking, we can get those numbers. Because I'm like, how do we know how much it would cost if we want to raise it? Because literally, it was here. And to me, that's an unsafe railing for any movement in open stairs. So we just kind of guessed if we wanted to add 6 inches or inch, a foot. And he said he would be happy to get those bids if the board wanted it. And I said, fine, we're going to the meeting tomorrow. We'll bring it up and discuss it. Then we get this email that we know nothing about because nothing was said at all about halting production. It was explained to me that that production was never going to make it before September 16th. They hadn't even started working on it the day I was there. There had been no notice that they had even started working on that railing for the amphitheater, let alone would it be ready on September 16th, because they hadn't even started the work. And they knew that because they hadn't been notified that the work had been done. So I said, well, let's take it to the meeting tomorrow. We'll see what everybody thinks when we talk to them about it. That was the conversation.
So I'm just wondering why didn't he say that night? We were sitting there and.
It's my understanding from the architect that they didn't hear about it until that night, at that meeting, when the conversation came
The
up.
architect didn't hear about the railing conversation until that night.
Correct, that is my
But
understanding.
we had Chicago Heights there. And they were
Yes.
in the conversation, so I don't know why wouldn't they say we've already ordered another rail or?
Chicago Heights is primarily at the meeting to answer any questions. DLA is typically the representative that is speaking on behalf of the project. So Chicago Heights probably won't say anything unless they are specifically asked a question at those meetings.
So now, but my understanding is they are saying that 2 board members came there and told them to order a different size. Is that what they're saying?
That's incorrect.
Is that what they're saying?
The architect tells me that that is what transpired.
But we discussed it at the meeting and
At the meeting, he was
they
right
assured
there.
us that it was, the height was fine and that there was no problems and we all agreed,
Exactly.
okay, then if you say that it's high enough, it's high enough. I mean, isn't that what we talked about?
When was this ordered?
When was,
The railing that they're saying they ordered?
the measurements for the railing could not be given to the manufacturer until after the stairs were actually in. So I can go back and find out specifically when they were ordered, but the original estimate was September 16th for some
That's what's in
reason.
the FYI.
September 16th.
And this conversation transpired, we had the committee of the whole meeting on Tuesday. The meetings are on Thursdays.
So
Correct.
the committee of the whole meeting was on Tuesday. The walkthrough that you two did was on Monday? Okay. Okay.
At the committee of the whole, and then if they so chose, then somebody would do what needed to be done. You would take it to DLA, whatever it needed to be, if we all decided that it was going to be a problem.
And it wasn't after.
And that's the way it was left,
recollection.
and that's the way it was discussed on Tuesday.
there should have-
Nobody told them to not
There
There
put it
should have
away.
been no change to the order because Brian Scully was adamant at the meeting that the railing was 42 inches high.
But it's
When I
not,
That's what I'm
when I
trying to
was
find
there-
out, when was it ordered? Because the way I read it, it was like it was ordered after the walkthrough, like
It's-
before
it's-
the meeting.
okay, it's my understanding that the halt on the production occurred before the committee of the whole meeting. And again, there's obviously a miscommunication. I don't know where it occurred, but it's my understanding from DLA that there was a halt to production of the railing of a couple of days that resulted from directives that were given during the walkthroughs of the board members.
Okay, but a couple of days wouldn't change it from September 16th to October 6th.
I can't
There-
speak to that.
There is a lot of smoke and mirrors being thrown your way, okay? It's my understanding, unless they lied to me, that on Friday, they hadn't even started production of the railings. The company had done nothing. Okay, I asked, what's the height of these railings? Because the kids are gonna run up and down this open amphitheater, and I don't want to see one of them take a nosedive off the railing or underneath it or through it. They said, well, we think it's about 36 inches. I said, that's pretty darn low. That's awfully low, and it's a brass rail. I said, you're talking about a handrail, brass rail to walk up? Yeah, it's a brass rail. Okay, that's where the conversation ended with me. I came to the meeting, the committee of the whole, and I asked that Brian, and you were sitting there, are these 36 inches? He said, no, they're 42 inches. I said, okay, they're 42 inches. That's what I was going to ask him. And I said, how are they constructed? He said they have heavy pane glass in between so the kids can't slide through it and take a nosedive off 16 feet down in the concrete. Okay? That's the conversation. No one told them to do any kind of change order. Nobody told them to do anything with that rail. We don't have the authority to do that.
If you would like,
They didn't have the railing ordered as of that meeting of the committee. Production hadn't started on that railing when we had our meeting at the committee of the whole. So there should have been absolutely no reason for him to change anything, because he was adamant in correcting me that the railing is 42 inches high and it met the ADA standards. So if they changed something, DLA took it upon himself to change it. Because I can't control anything with those people. I'm in charge of nothing.
It wasn't DLA, it was.
it's my understanding the DLA was not aware of any of this until the date of the committee of the whole. If it is the pleasure of the board, I can seek a written statement from Chicago Heights Construction, since they were the only ones that were privy to the walkthroughs that occurred at that time. Because from what I'm being told, DLA is receiving this information from Dan. Dan told DLA that this happened. So it would probably be.
I mean, I would like clarity. If this is not true, I don't like something being pinned on the school board if this did not occur. And at the same time, if it did occur, I wasn't there. We just have to be mindful as board members. I've gone through the building. I did a walkthrough. I asked, some simple questions, a few, and then just, went through on my own pretty much and came back. And we have to be careful, because when you go into, the schools, wherever we are, and it's a board member coming in and you have a conversation with someone, they can take it a certain way, and they will go back and say, a board member told me to do this, or a board member said this, and somebody will take it as the board said do blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, I think it's two parts involved, in it. And we just have to be sensitive to the fact that you have to, know when you're having conversations, because it's not just this, it's other things. It's, you can go into our buildings and have conversations with employees, and they take it as, if it's speaking with a board member, if you say something, or, oh, I agree with you, or whatever, it's always, a possibility of them saying the board said. So I would like clarity on it, because especially if they're lying, I don't have a good outlook on Chicago Heights anyway. I feel like their track record with us has been very poor, and I would like to know what they're saying happened for understanding.
No, I would also add to that, I don't have a good feeling on our architectural firm, DLA, because, I have the same bad feelings about them. I don't think they're being honest about it. I don't understand why there's any reason for Chicago Heights to lie about anything over there in that amphitheater, If you want to assess any blame, back in December, I told them there was a tank there. The gentleman told us there's a tank, and they couldn't find a tank. They didn't spend the extra $50 or $1,500 or whatever it would have cost to get some ground sonar. They stuck a probe in the ground and poked it around, and they missed the tank by about 6 inches. If they'd have moved over 6 inches in the other, I don't remember it's north, south, or east or west, but in one other direction, they'd have found the tank. They'd have got the ground penetrating equipment. The tank would have been found, would have been taken out, and all that that 4-month delay would have been taken care of. So if you want to go all the way to the back, that's where the problem started, with the amphitheater. And that's why they're so far behind on it, because they got penny wise and pound foolish, and just didn't, pound foolish and penny wise, or whatever the expression is. They stuck a stick in the ground, a probe in the ground, instead of getting the ground penetrating radar and doing it the right way. Because that oil went someplace, and there was no doubt about it, and then they found the tank. But this thing has gotten ridiculous because all I pointed out was safety items for our children. And I will point out safety items that I see in any one of our schools whenever I see it. That's a responsibility that I feel that I have as a school board member, as a taxpayer, as a parent, to point out safety items, potential safety items. That's the only conversations we had. The rest of the stuff they're doing in there, they seem to be doing a yeoman's job, and I thought they were doing great work. They were busting. It was just work, work, work when I was there. And I commend all of the people involved for doing that. That's all. So I just want to clarify that.
I do agree that I think there's a lot of miscommunication between DLA and Chicago Heights. Nobody was notified that there was an issue with the lights in the amphitheater, and I called Dr. Cunningham with it after I'd been on the walkthrough and said, do you know that there's been a delay in the amphitheater with them working on it because the ceiling tile doesn't, they couldn't get the lights in right with the ceiling tiles, whatever. They weren't cohesive, whatever. I can't think of the right word, but they were going to put ceiling tile up and try to get lights in, and they didn't, whatever. So nobody had said a word to us about that. And my understanding is there was a couple-week delay on that while they waited for somebody to come out from the ceiling tile company and whatever. I mean, I just think that there's been a lot of finger pointing, excuses, miscommunication. A lot of times I don't think they ever dealt with anything in writing from one person to another. They told somebody. And so I think all in all, there was a lot of oopses on this project. I think we've learned from a lot of it. I certainly have. But I just think that we didn't have always the best of relationship between the two of them working together, even though they had worked together before. Because I don't think the left hand knew what the right hand was doing many times. That's my personal opinion when you listen to him.
Thank you. I have a motion to adjourn. I don't believe there's a need for a closed session.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Teray,
Second.
second by Mrs. Gasparo. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. I dare you. Okay, the meeting adjourned.